What's going on, everybody, and welcome back to From The Bench. I'm your host, Will Meadows, and welcome to our Wednesday edition of the show, where we have a lot to talk about, a ton of basketball. March Madness is in full effect. The first weekend just got wrapped up. The Vols are getting hot at the right time, and they face an SEC foe and border rival, the Kentucky Wildcats, who are coming off of a hot game themselves where they're shooting the ball very well. It's going to be a great game. We're going to talk a little bit about that. We're going to focus more on the matchup itself on our Friday episode, but today we're just going to kind of recap how the Vols are doing, kind of talk about what players are getting hot at the right time for the Vols, and yeah, let's just get right into it. But before we get into anything, make sure you guys subscribe to the channel, like this video, and leave a comment about how you feel about this weekend's game against the Kentucky Wildcats at 7:39 p.m. So, like I said, the Vols are getting hot at the right time, and if you guys watch this show on a weekly basis, or as we know, it's only 2 days a week for this show, but I've been saying for the last few weeks, we're used to Tennessee basketball. Like, for example, we're running for a 1 seed after we beat Alabama on a great shot, and then we go lose at Ole Miss. That's kind of just how Tennessee basketball feels sometimes. We'll just get the air knocked right out of us. And I've been saying for weeks and on weeks that I don't care about the regular season losses towards the end of the year. I don't care how we do in the SEC tournament, because sometimes we either win it like we did with Kennedy Chandler, or we like to choke in the first round like we did a year or two ago against Mississippi State. But like I said, I wasn't worried about those games, because I know that this is a good basketball team. It's one of the better teams Rick Barnes has had since he's been here. Obviously, Zakai Zeigler leading the way, a very experienced point guard and one of the best in the country, an All-American. But I've been saying that I don't care about those losses, because if a certain man can get hot at the right time, then I think this team can go all the way. And that man, as we all know, is Chaz Lanier, who is, like we said, getting hot at the right time. I've kept on saying, if we can get 6 games of great Chaz Lanier basketball, this team can go all the way. And I've said on this show a couple times where I have problems with Chaz Lanier standing and just going off to start the game, and then he'll just stand and kind of be okay with being off-ball denied. And he's really just flipped the script in March Madness in a couple ways. His play style, obviously, like, he's playing good to start the game, but he's staying a factor in the game as the game goes on. And he always has, you know what I mean? I'm not saying the guy just disappears, but, I mean, sometimes it does feel like that. This guy is a All-American honorable mention. He is a finalist for the Jerry West Award. But sometimes the guy just seems to disappear in the second half. That's not the case as of late. The first 2 games, the first weekend of March Madness, he has been on fire. He's averaging a little over 24 points a game. And like I said, he's kind of flipped the script as a play style-wise. Just not play style. I mean, the guy's still shooting the lights out of it. But he's more effective through 2 halves of basketball, but he's playing with a little bit of a chip on his shoulder. I don't know if you guys have kind of recognized that like I have. Chaz Lanier is a pretty low-profile guy. I mean, I don't know him off the court, obviously, but, I mean, that guy could blow up for 30, and he just jogs back down the court, and doesn't show a lot of emotion. But against Wofford, man, I didn't know if he had a personal vendetta against Wofford, but the guy was celebrating, showing a lot of emotion. And then I actually got the chance to go to Lexington for the UCLA game, and he was doing the same thing, and I really like to see it. He's playing with his heart on his sleeve, a little chip on his shoulder, and he's acting like he's got something to prove. I mean, I was talking with one of my buddies about it, like, this Tennessee team is really playing for everything. Zakai Zeigler, I mean, I love the guy more than anything, but at 5'7", 5'8", 5'9", maybe not the biggest threat to be a good NBA player, just being completely honest. I mean, the guy is arguably, if not the greatest point guard in the history of the school. But just as an NBA prospect and player, I hope he defies the odds and does exactly that and is an all-star point guard in the league. But it's been his whole life. The odds are stacked against him. But he's playing for his legacy as a Tennessee Volunteer. Jemai Mashack is another one. I mean, he could get drafted just solely based off defensive ability and hope that he can develop more of a jump shot. But a lot of these guys don't have much of an NBA ceiling. We don't have a Dalton Connect like we did last year, where we have a first-round guy. And a few Tennessee teams in the past, it seems like we've had those draft guys. I mean, way back we had Schofield and we had Grant. Jordan Bone was even in contention to get drafted. Kyle Alexander found himself a home in Miami there for a while. And then we had obviously Keon Johnson, Kennedy Chandler, Jaden Springer. Like we've had guys get drafted as of late. It doesn't seem like we really have that NBA talent on this team. Chaz Lanier is definitely going to get drafted, I think, but he's going to be a second-round guy and going to definitely have to make his way up from the G League, in my opinion. Unless he gets drafted, I mean, there's a world where Chaz Lanier gets drafted into the perfect fit where all he has to do is sit there like this and just be ready to shoot it because despite his struggles in the second half or not, whether he's a good NBA prospect or not, he has one of the quickest releases I've seen in the game of basketball, like genuinely. And I know I'm only 18 years old, but I've watched a lot of basketball, and that is one of, if not the quickest release off the catch and shoot in the game of basketball. So he's getting hot at the right time. He's playing with a little bit of a chip on his shoulder, and we just got to hope that it continues. Obviously, he didn't have his best games against Kentucky in the past, at Rupp or at Thompson Bowling Arena, but we got to hope that this chip on his shoulder and getting hot at the right time carries on, and we're going to need him to shoot good this weekend. I think that this game, this weekend against, I guess it's Friday, for the Tennessee Volunteers is arguably, to date, the most important basketball game in the history of the program. Now, I say that, I know it's the Sweet 16, we've been doing Elite 8 before, but with it being Zakai's last year, it's possibly Rick Barnes' last year, Meshak's last year. We have 6 seniors on this team. And you know who you're playing. This is arguably our biggest rival in the sport of basketball. I mean, some people can say it's Alabama. Some can say, it's Florida. I think those teams definitely favor in football. But I think for basketball, Kentucky is most definitely our biggest rival, especially since I've been alive. So I really think that it is arguably the most important game in the history of Tennessee basketball. If it's not the most important, it's definitely up there. I don't see it being outside of the top 3 most important because if you win, you go to an Elite 8 where it's a very winnable game. Houston is a team that's a lot like us, very defensive-minded, a veteran squad. And then you get, if you don't play Houston, you're playing Purdue, who we just can't seem to get over the hump against. They beat us last year with Edey. Years prior when we had Admiral and Grant and things of that nature, we lost to Carson Edwards and just they couldn't miss. So we haven't been able to seem to get over that Boilermaker hump. But, hopefully we either play them or Houston. I don't want Kentucky to be our last game. But we talked about Chaz Lanier. Zakai Zeigler is playing great basketball too. He's averaging around 13 and 8 as his first weekend just finished up for March Madness. Another guy that I think has maybe not played his best basketball of the year because, what he's going to do is not going to show up on a stat sheet every night. But Jahmai Meshak hit 2 threes against UCLA, hit 1 against Wofford, and it's not abnormal for him to hit a 3 or 2, but he's shooting it with a lot more confidence. Like, we're used to seeing him shooting it if he catches it and he just looks and then sees, wow, nobody's guarding me, and he'll kind of hesitate and shoot it, or if it's late in the shot clock, he'll shoot it. But, we saw it with the first play against Wofford. He just turned and catched and shot, and that's what I kind of like to see. I think Jahmai Meshak, especially from the corners, as Rick Barnes has said earlier in the year, like he's a good corner shooter. And I think I think a lot of it is confidence, and that's a lot easier said than done to gain confidence on your three-point shot, especially when at this time of year, when it's win or go home. Like I said, easier said than done, but I like seeing him be able to shoot it with a little more confidence. I think he finished 2 of 3 against UCLA. Cade Phillips had a very good game. Well, not one of his better, but Cade Phillips did Cade Phillips against UCLA. Cade Phillips just struggles sometimes, man. He gets, sometimes they're not good calls, but it seems like every time he's in the game, he'll end up with 3 fouls in the first 10 minutes of him playing. 5 to 10 minutes of him playing, he's in foul trouble. Igor's kind of the same way. All of our bigs were solid. We kind of struggled early in the game with Bideau, a very good post player for UCLA, and then that Mara kid, the 7'3", just kind of alien for UCLA, had great touch around the rim, especially early in the game. But I feel like our bigs, especially in the second half, played a lot better, rebounded a lot more aggressively. I think Alcapara and Igor both had 7 rebounds, and Igor had majority of his in the first half. I know Cade Phillips had 6 or 7 rebounds, so the guys were aggressive. Gainey did Gainey, added his efficient 13 to 16 points. He's been Mr. Reliable for us this year. Only 7 points against Wofford, but you're not going to get it every single game. But even if it's just 7 points, like, he's hitting big time shots. Wofford kind of hung with us there for a while. Like, we'd get it to 12 and they'd hit a layup and a 3, and it's back to 7. And we just could never really separate from them. But I still think we played very good basketball against Wofford. Credit to Wofford, they were hitting shots. Yeah, we only beat UCLA by 9 or so, but I really think that game was not maybe the most complete, but one of the most complete games that I've seen this Tennessee basketball team play all year. Yeah, it started off a little slow, couldn't put the ball in the hole, started off kind of with some early fouls from some guys, but once we found our stride, Zakai getting downhill, Chaz Lanier was just good throughout the whole game and with north of 20 points. I really feel like everybody just did their part. Gainey was hitting shots. Cade Phillips, like I said, did Cade Phillips, and maybe not the most impressive scoring night from Igor, and maybe not better compared to what we've seen from him at some points this year, but he did his job, man. It'd be nice to get 12 points a game out of Igor, an efficient 12 points a game out of Igor, but when he's that big body presence, he's very physical. Sometimes it's questionably physical because it leads to some bad fouls. But that's kind of what I think we lacked last year, and especially against Purdue. I mean, obviously Zach Edey is one of the best players to come through the sport of college basketball in recent memory, a 2-time player of the year, and 4. But we lacked physicality last year. When we were playing Purdue last year, like, Adu was our starting big, and he played 8 minutes. Awaka was very physical last year, but he was undersized, around 6'7", and he just was very handsy with Edey. He's given up nearly a foot in size, so Awaka kind of struggled there. And then JP Estrella came off the bench, played very hard, brought some energy to the team, but as a young freshman compared to big physical Zach Edey, he just kind of out-muscled him. So last year, I think that's what we kind of lacked. At the beginning of the year, I kind of thought Okpara was going to be the same story. You guys know how I feel about Okpara. I love Okpara. I love his progression throughout the year. I think he has come along, but I think we are more of a physical, hard-nosed basketball team than we were a year ago. Obviously, we don't have a connect like we did last year, who was in the running for National Player of the Year, but we have 2 All-Americans, which is the first time since the 60s or 70s or whatever in Tennessee basketball history, so that's really cool. But I just think, like, Igor plays very hard. Felix, it seems like he's jawing with somebody nearly every game, just playing with a little bit of a chip on his shoulder, like I was saying earlier. And then Cade Phillips is going to be Cade Phillips. How many times do I have to say it? The guy just plays hard. He's going to do all the little things, and that's a Tennessee basketball player right there. It's just like Meshack. It might not show up on the stat sheet, but the guy's just going to play hard. So I'm excited. I think that I said earlier to one of my buddies before, I guess I haven't had an episode since March Madness began, but I really like our draw. I don't think, and like I said, we'll break it down more on Friday, the day of the game and when our next episode comes out, but I just don't think a team, don't get me wrong, Kentucky's a very good basketball team. I think Mark Pope is an incredible coach, but I don't think a team beats a rival who is as good as the Tennessee Volunteers 3 times in 1 year. And they don't have their best player in Jackson Robinson, which they haven't, and they're still in the Sweet 16. So, how much is it really affecting them? And it's obviously affecting them, but we've seen guys like Kobe Barea have the next man up mentality, and they started the second half on 11 of 12 shooting against Illinois in the round of 32. So they're definitely finding ways to fill the absence of Jackson Robinson. It's a very good basketball team with a very good coach, but I just don't think that I don't want to say that because watch, we'll lose as soon as I say it. I just don't think that a team that good beats a rival 3 times in 1 year, especially in the fashion that they beat us in the first 2. When they played at Thompson Bowling, they couldn't miss. They shot like 60% from 3, either in the first or the second half, and we couldn't throw it in the ocean. Like I said, Chaz Lanier didn't have his best game. So hopefully that's more of a Chaz Lanier slump thing than it is Kentucky knows how to guard Chaz Lanier thing. So we'll see. Like I said, we'll break more of it down by player, by coach, by previous games on Friday. I think it's going to be a very good game, high stakes. It's always fun to see rivals face off in March Madness. I think this is I'm pretty sure this is the first time that they've ever played each other in the NCAA tournament, so it should be a lot of fun. But real quick before we wrap this episode up, I just wanted to kind of touch. I saw Tom Izzo talking about it earlier, and we've talked about it a lot, this whole transfer portal with football, but they're having the same problem, and this is a very simple problem to fix. Like, why is the transfer portal opening as the Sweet 16 are playing? Is being played, I'm sorry. It just doesn't make any sense whatsoever. It's just like when they opened it during the college football playoffs for football, and the backup for Penn State had to transfer, and some guys that are still in contention for a national championship are having to leave because they don't want to get behind. Like if they're thinking, if I don't enter right now, then say, just for example, Scottie Pippen's son, I think it's Justin Pippen, was a freshman at Michigan this year. He just entered the portal. Michigan's still playing. They've got Auburn this week. But say Justin Pippen wants to go to Arkansas. I don't know anything about the guy, but just using it as an example. Say Justin, or I guess Arkansas is not a good one because they're still playing. Say he wants to go to Ohio State. Sorry, I don't know why I was blanking on that. And, of course, I picked Michigan's rival. Say he wants to go to Ohio State. He's thinking in his mind, if I don't enter the portal right now, while we're still playing, say Michigan goes to the national championship, Ohio State could go get their guys before I even get to be out of before I even get to enter the portal. So people don't want to miss out on stuff like that. I'm all for NIL and for the portal. I think the portal needs some restrictions. I'm for NIL. These kids deserve to get paid off their name, image, and likeness. Maybe there could be a restriction on that. I don't know how they'll ever restrict that because you can't have a cap. It could be maybe based off, the bigger schools would just never agree to it. So, there's no point of even talking about it. There'll never be a cap. And even if there theoretically was, people would just have under the table money like there has always been. But because you're not going to have a Mountain West team paying the same amount of money as Tennessee, for example. It's just not possible. But I just don't. They've got to change the portal a little bit. There's over 1,000 kids in the portal right now. There's a lot of good basketball players in the portal too. Speaking of Mountain West, the Mountain West Player of the Year, Donovan Dent, point guard from New Mexico, is in the portal right now too. So, and his season ended the other day. It's like, I don't know if you guys seen it on social media. I don't even know his name. It's a 4-star that Vanderbilt. He was a 4-star freshman for Vanderbilt this year. Didn't play much at all. He entered the transfer portal 13 minutes after Vanderbilt's season was over. Like, what in the world, dude? It's just ridiculous. The whole thing's almost laughable. But they've definitely got to fix it. Tom Izzo and Matt Painter, some old school coaches like that. And I'm sure Rick Barnes is the same, just kind of hasn't spoke out about it. But they're just not fans of it. Tom Izzo was saying that he's not going to cheat his guy. He's not even going to look at the portal because he's not going to cheat his guys out of competing for a national championship because of the new wave of building a team. And then you've seen guys like Calipari who continue to say, I'm going to keep doing my way of building a team where I'm going to go get the best freshman in the country every year and try and build through that. And they're in the Sweet 16. Obviously, maybe not the most impressive regular season for the Razorbacks, but they're back in the Sweet 16. And Calipari can recruit with the best of them. They've got the number 1 point guard in the country, and Darius Acuff committed to him right now. So it's interesting, man. The transfer portal, regardless of the sport, is just insane all around. So I just wanted to kind of touch on that because right before I was, when I was jotting my notes down for the episode, I scrolled upon Tom Izzo losing his mind, getting pretty adamant about it, how he felt about it. So I just kind of wanted to touch on that. And I'll be talking a little bit more about the transfer portal on our other channel, just regular From The Bench. Obviously, this is From The Bench Vols. I posted an episode last month, like I had said that I was going to start that new channel, and then I got logged out of my YouTube. I don't know why. I could not figure it out. But I'm back in it now, so I'm about to go record that episode right now. So make sure you guys go keep up with that. I'll see. Last time it wouldn't let me. I'm just having a lot of difficulty with that channel, but I'll try and leave the link to that channel in the description. But I think that's going to wrap it up for today's episode. Again, make sure you guys subscribe to the channel, like this video, and leave a comment. about how you feel about this game or this weekend's game against the Kentucky Wildcats and who you'd rather see in the Elite Eight. I'm curious about that because, yes, Purdue's a worse team, but we can't get over that Purdue hump, like I said earlier. But, again, thank you guys for watching, and go Vols.